So, despite that roller coaster of a season for Boise State, they had a productive season on the offensive side of the ball in 2023, relying on that strong running game. They ranked 26 in total offense, averaging 436.1 yards per game, 67th in passing offense at 221.3 yards per game, 7th in rushing offense, averaging 214.9 per game, and averaging uh, and 32nd in scoring offense, putting up 32.1 points per game. So let's get to the position where it all starts on the offense, and that's the quarterback. They lost last year's starters. You mentioned Taylor Green, who's off to Arkansas. That sounds like he's going to the SEC, and he's a starting quarterback there.
Mm-hmm.
They do return Maddox Madsen, who's recovering from, I believe it was a knee
It was,
injury.
yep. MCL, PCL.
So he started and played a lot last year, but got injured. But then they bring in Malachi Nelson, a former 5-star recruit. He transfers in from USC. How is this quarterback room shaping up this spring?
Well, you look at the race to replace Taylor Green, and really, it can be seen as a two-man race between Malachi Nelson and Mad Dog Madsen, but in reality, it's a three-man race. CJ Taylor is still there. He's a redshirt freshman. He was put in a really tough spot last year. His first career start was in the bowl game against UCLA, which had the 10th ranked defense in the country. He struggled there, but he's shown great growth this year. He had a really strong high school career at Rancho Cucamonga High School. He's a talented quarterback, so he's going to be in the mix. But, as we go into the fall, you got to imagine Malachi Madsen probably going to be those top two guys there. Madsen, he hasn't done much this spring. He's done individual drills. He's done 7-on-7 stuff. He had surgery last November to repair that knee. He's expected to be cleared in the fall, so the competition will really pick up then. But I tell you what, Madsen is one of those guys. He's the type of player that Boise State was built on. You look at some of the greatest players in Boise State history. Kellen Moore wasn't a 5-star recruit. He didn't have a million offers coming out of high school. Leighton Vander Esch played 8-man football, didn't have a million offers coming out of high school. Maddox Madsen is an undersized but scrappy and talented quarterback. He only had 2 offers out of high school, Boise State, New Mexico. But he proved last year that he can play this game. He can play at a high level. He played in 9 games last year. I believe he finished the season with 9 or 10 touchdown passes. He's solid. I think he's going to give Malachi Nelson a run for his money to win the starting job. Now, we talk about Nelson. This is a guy, when you look at him in his pads, he looks a little skinny. You're like, is he really 190 pounds? That they say he is. We'll see if that's really true. But this kid's got a major league arm, man. The first couple of weeks he struggled. He was swimming upstream. He was trying to learn the playbook. These last 2 weeks, his arm has really shined through. This kid's got a deep ball that is sick. He's got great timing, really good instincts. He's not scared to run the ball. He's got good instincts when to pull it down, when to take a sack. I think he's going to be really, really good. So we don't really know how this race is going to shape up yet until Madsen's healthy. That's the deal right there. But Malachi Nelson's a really talented player. He's going to have a really, really good future wherever he is. But, Madsen is really good as well. So we're going to learn in the fall.
How much do you think it's an issue with Maddox missing this time here in the spring? Do you think that's a huge impact, or like, hey, Nelson can really take that big jump? Because then media and everybody else, this is all they see, and they just see Nelson.
It certainly gives Nelson a leg up. But like Dirk Cutter said just last week, he's seen Maddox play this game. He knows that Maddox can play at this level and he can win at this level. So he's not too concerned. So to be honest with you, yes, maybe Nelson has a little bit of a leg up, but Madsen and Nelson are still going to be head-to-head going into fall camp.
So you mentioned Madsen's recovery going pretty well, should be ready to go for, you said, the fall, right?
Yep, fall camp, in August.
So Nelson also had surgery 2 years ago. I believe it was maybe in his senior year on his non-throwing shoulder. And then we never really saw him at USC. Has there been any talk about that? Does he mention anything?
Okay. No, hasn't been mentioned. Hasn't been affected. He's been on the field for every practice. Looks healthy.
Perfect.
All right, move on to that amazing running game, which, like Luke alluded to earlier, was kind of the strength of that 2023 team. They do lose George Line to graduation, but they return Heisman hopeful and, frankly, one of the best, if not the best, running backs in all of college football, in Ashton Jeanty, as well as Breezy Dubar. Did that group just kind of pick up where they left off in 2023 in the spring?
They got even better. It's hard to believe, but they got even better, and they're going to get even better again in the fall. So you mentioned Ashton Genty, definitely going to be a Heisman candidate. He was the Mountain West Offensive Player of the Year last year, probably going to be the favorite to win it again this year. He's just one of those guys that is just impossibly athletic and strong and powerful. He's squatting 600 pounds. He's hurdling guys. He's catching the ball out of the backfield. He's a guy who, by all rights, is probably going to be in the NFL draft this time next year. So then let's talk about Breezy Dubar. He came in last season, got a few snaps, really showed what he can do. I mean, he's a big kid, physical, powerful runner. He's one of those guys that doesn't dance in the hole. He hits that hole hard. And I tell you what, the thing about Breezy Dubar, he's like 6'1". He's a couple inches from being a slot receiver, and he's got that kind of explosiveness, that shiftiness about him. He's going to be a really good number 2 this year. Then this is why I say they got better. So early enrollee Sire Gaines, I know we're going to talk about him in a few minutes, but he's come in and just impressed the heck out of everybody. You talk about, when Ashton Genty got here as a freshman, he looked like a grown man. Sire Gaines is the exact same way. He's 208 pounds, just chiseled, powerful, fast, catches the ball well, blocks well. He's going to get snaps this year. I can almost guarantee it. And then coming in the fall, they have another running back in Dylan Riley, who was one of the fastest players in California last year. He's going to be a compliment there as well. So that running back room is stacked. They're going to, they've got to average 28, 30, 32 carries a game this year. The offensive line is stacked. They got 4 returning starters there. So this offense is going to run through the running game.
Yeah, I think he's running track this spring, right? I think that's probably part of the reason why he's not there. Wasn't an early enrollee. I think just the folks outside of Boise, I think they were kind of, they kind of more, or had heard about Dylan Riley and not so much about Gaines. But I've read things that you've written and others have written about Gaines and how good he's looked at the spring. So that's definitely great news for that Boise State running game.
And he's a guy that had Gaines I'm talking about, had a really productive high school career. I think he rushed for more than 3,000 career yards in high school, tons of touchdowns. He's going to be really good. He's going to be the next dude at Boise State, I think.
We talked about before we started recording, and the Ashton and his Heisman campaign that's kind of already kicked off, right? With these Ashton Genty Heisman T-shirts. I think they're even giving out. I don't remember how many it is, but so like the first X number of fans at the spring game tomorrow get those shirts. Do you think we'll see maybe as the season progresses, we might see a billboard there in Times Square at some point?
It's quite possible. For sure, you'll see some billboards in Boise. I don't know about Times Square, but this Heisman campaign is jumping into full effect. Big time. They're the first 750 fans through the gate get the Genty T-shirts. That they've got this logo with it's Heisman, but the number 2, which is Genty's jersey number, replaces the S in Heisman. There's even talk, and I don't even know if this is legal, but some of the guys even talked about trying to send the Heisman voters gifts during the season to kind of garner some favor with them. So it's going to be a real thing. I think he's going to have a shot at the Heisman for sure. Will he win it? Who knows? I mean, when was the last time a non-quarterback won the Heisman?
He has 2 things going against him. One, he's not a quarterback, and 2, he plays in the G5. But
exactly.
But at the very least, I feel like he has a great shot at being, one of the finalists there.
Exactly. I tell you what. I mean, if he plays anything like he did last season, he'll be on my ballot for sure. I can guarantee you that. So he's going to have a great season, and the guys behind him are going to be really good too.
And then, once the media grabs a hold of his background of where he came from and playing football in Italy and all of this stuff, it'll just be this big media dream of look at this story, playing football in Italy to a Heisman. I can see that.
And he's really the first big name star in Boise to get a big name NIL deal. Now I say big name NIL deal. That's by Boise standards, but I mean he's getting $300K. He got a car deal. He got a residence for a whole year. So I mean that's way more than any other Boise State athletes ever gotten in the NIL era. So they know they have something special.
We talked a little bit. Talked about all the talent they have in that running back room. Can you share with us maybe how you see the split going in terms of carries? Will it be similar to last season when both Kalani and Ginty were both healthy? Will it be that kind of more of an even split, or will it lean even more towards Ginty?
I think they're going to skew a little bit more towards Ginty. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see him get 25, maybe 30 touches a game. That's rushing and receiving combined there. Breezy Dubar, I can see him getting 10 to 15 touches a game, but they're going to run this through Ashton Ginty as long as he's healthy. But again, I'm just going to say this again: Sire Gaines is going to get on the field somehow, some way. If he's healthy, he's going to play, whether it's 1, 2, 5 snaps a game. Maybe he's returning kickoffs or punts. He's going to find a way to get on the field.
It's definitely exciting to hear.
Mm-hmm.
The passing game certainly had its ups and downs with, we talked a little bit about Eric McAllister entering the transfer portal mid-season, and then they never really seemed to get back on track. They do lose Billy Bowens and Stefan Cobbs to graduation, but return exciting freshman, now sophomore wide receiver Prince Strawn, and bring in a pair of high-profile transfers in Cam Camper from Indiana and former four-star recruit Chris Marshall from Texas A&M by way of
Ole Miss.
And then Kilgore College.
Yeah. How did that wide receiver group shape up this spring?
It's really exciting this year. The toughest thing about losing McAllister is that Boise State in 2022 didn't really have a true number one receiver. There wasn't that guy that they could trust to win a 50-50 ball every time they threw the deep ball. When they lost Khalil Shakir in 2021, they just didn't have a guy to really replace him that next year. McAllister came in. He was that deep threat. He won those 50-50 balls. It's unfortunate what happened with him and him moving on. But there is some excitement in this receiver room. You mentioned Chris Marshall. He's a guy that, he's had some issues in the past. He was dismissed from Texas A&M, he got in trouble at Texas A&M, transferred to Ole Miss, was dismissed from Ole Miss, and then spent a year in junior college. So he's got to keep his head on straight. He knows for a fact that this is his last shot. He's not going to get another chance if he messes up here. So he's got to keep his head on straight. But if he can, man, this kid is a talent. He's got an NFL body. He's got the long arms, good size. I've seen him make 4 or 5 really tough, shoestring catches on the sideline this year. So if he's healthy, he's going to be really good. Cam Camper's been out all spring. He had knee surgery last November. He hasn't been back yet, but looking at his film, he's going to be a guy that's really good too. He's shifty. He doesn't have quite the same frame as Chris Marshall, but he's a little more versatile in my opinion. I think Camper's a guy that can play in the slot or on the outside. He's going to be good for them, I think. And then you have 2 really exciting kind of newcomer receivers, if you will. Let's talk about Prince Strawn. He's a guy who I think, even if Marshall's healthy, could become that number 1 receiver this year. He's just got that much natural talent. He's 6'5", probably 215, 220, catches the ball just beautifully. I've maybe seen him drop 1 pass this spring. He's a great deep threat. He's got NFL bloodlines. His older brother Michael played for the Colts, now plays for the Panthers. And Strawn he's just one of those kids that looks the part. He looks like he could go to the NFL. And then another one that's had really a tough story, a tough journey in college football is Austin Bolt. He's a local kid, played at Bora High near Boise State, had a really gruesome leg break in 2022 in the season opener. Took him more than a year to come back, but he showed what he can do at the end of last season, showed he can catch the deep ball. And Dirk Cutter said he's had the best spring of any receiver on the team this year. So I think there's going to be big things for Austin Bolt this year. And then you look at some other guys that I think are going to play roles in that receiving game. Chase Penry is a guy who transferred in from Colorado last year. He was slowed by injuries last year, but he's a guy that could really get in there and see some time in the slot. He's had a good spring. And Latrell Caples is healthy again this year. So Caples was their leading receiver in 2022. He had 54 catches, almost 600 yards. Really solid guy. Not the biggest receiver in the world, but a scrappy guy that can play slot and on the outside some. He can do some end arounds. He's a really good athlete. So I would say this year, wide receiver wise, there's 2 guys that are competing for that number 1 spot, Prince Strawn and Chris Marshall, but there's way more depth than there has been in the last couple of years. So that's exciting to see.
And I think this was back in 2022. I talked to somebody within the program, and I just asked them who the best athletic freak was, and they said Austin Bolt. I think at that point he was playing tight end, or maybe more so in that tight end department. I was like, oh, really? And they're like, he might be the fastest guy on the team, back in 2022. I don't know coming back from
Yeah,
injury if he was the same.
Austin Bolt's a really impressive athlete, and part of that position change has been part of his journey because he was a wide receiver and quarterback in high school, was the Gatorade State Player of the Year in Idaho, came to Boise State, they moved him to tight end, then he actually spent a season at defensive end, then he moved back to tight end, now he's a wide receiver where he belongs, and he's an athletic freak. You should see him play basketball. I mean, he's one of the best basketball players on the team. You know, he's got ridiculous dunk skills. I mean, he's an athletic freak, so he's going to have a good year this year.
Did you talked about Cam Camper's injury. When do they kind of expect, or I'm sorry, surgery from last year? When do they kind of expect him to be ready? And are things progressing the way they would expect? Or
it seems like it. We haven't really had an update on him, but before spring started, Coach Danielson said they expect him back for fall camp. So if as long as he's healthy by August 1, they'll be fine. And I think, like I said, I think he's the guy that finds a role in this offense. I mean, obviously there's only so many passes to go around, but he's so versatile. They can put him in the slot, they can put him outside. He's going to see some times.
I could see him maybe kind of slow playing him, bringing him back because you talk about this wide receiver depth. Mm-hmm. And I honestly think Boise has playoff aspirations. So, hey, let's get healthy and, be playing and hitting at all the top cylinders when you come to playoff time, I think.
Absolutely.
Moving over to the offensive line, they do return a lot of last season starters in Cage Casey, Mason Randolph, Roger Caron, and Ben Dooley, but they also lose Cade Beresford, Garrett Kern, and Ethan Card. How did that group look in the spring?
Really, really good. Really good. Now, a couple of those guys have been out this spring. Mason Randolph's been out. Roger Carrion's been out. They're both expected back for fall camp, but that line is going to be really, really good this year. I mean, you look at what Cage Casey did last year at left tackle as a freshman, and he's just a workout warrior. They love him in the weight room. They love his mentality. Ben Dooley is probably going to win that job at the left guard. Ben Dooley is he's one of those guys. He's the leader of that line this year, and he's played everywhere. He's played right guard, left guard, right tackle. He's a former state champion wrestler. I mean, probably Boise State's best chance to get a lineman drafted next year is Ben Dooley. Mason Randolph's another versatile guy. He can play guard or center. He's been really good. Roger Carrion came in last year, and really he got on the field because of injuries to Dooley last year, but he's played really, really well. So right tackle is really that only spot where they're looking for a starter. And they got two young tackles working for that spot, Hall Smith and Kyle Cox. Hall Smith's a redshirt sophomore. I believe Kyle Cox is a redshirt freshman. Cox, the coaches tell me he's a freak in the weight room too. They've loved him since he got on campus. But Hall Smith has seen most of the snaps at right tackle this spring. So I would expect tomorrow in the spring game to see him start there.
In the past, tight end production has been hit or miss. Probably Austin Bolt's been the best tight end production, as we talked earlier. But what can we expect from that group here in 2024? And does anyone kind of stand out so far?
I think one of my, hottest takes for this season is that the tight end position is going to have a huge time role in this offense, more than it has probably in the past decade. Matt Lauder is a player that they're really, really excited about. He's really athletic, really explosive. There aren't a lot of tight ends that can stretch defenses vertically, and Matt Lauder is a guy that can do that. I mean, you go back and watch his high school film, and it's just acrobatic catch after acrobatic catch. So he's going to have a really big role. And then they have another young redshirt freshman named Matt Wagner, who is the same mold as Matt Lauder. Really, probably 6'4", 6'5", can go up and make those high catches, can really stretch the defense. He was originally committed to North Texas, but Boise State flipped him late in 2022. 2022. I think tight end is going to have a huge role this year. I can see those guys. I can see Matt Lauder topping, 25, 30, 35 catches. But more importantly, I can see him stretching that defense and really opening things up for the other receivers.
All right, this next question is going to be hard because we've talked about a lot of players and a lot of exciting players with a lot of potential this coming year. If you had to pick one offensive player to kind of have a breakout season in 2024, who would that be?
Yeah, there's so many options. I mean, Breezy Dubar is an easy choice. Austin Bolt and Prince Strong are both easy choices. But I'm going to go with Latrell Caples. This is a guy that he showed in 2022 that he can be very productive in this offense when he's used the right way. You know, when they motion him, when they move him around, when they play him in the slot, when they play him outside, when they get him the ball, he has the athleticism to make things happen. So he's an undersized, scrappy guy, but he brings an intensity that they just didn't have at the receiver room last year. So I think I can see him, you know, with 40, 50 catches again this season. And I can also see him winning the job at punt returner and doing a much, much better job in that role than they had last year.